Good. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So thank you very much for joining this Sumo Logic live webinar. Today we're going to be talking, in fact, as we do every month, about Sumo Logic's Cloud SIEM. I'm Challis. Before we get going, just some very quick housekeeping. We are recording this, as I said, live webinar. Towards the end of the session, I will be taking any questions. If you think of any questions while I'm speaking, then feel free to click the Q&A button that you'll find in your webinar window or on the taskbar, yeah, just make a note of the question, and then as we get towards the end, we'll have a little Q&A section, and I'll endeavour to get through as many of your questions as possible. So yeah, we've got 30 minutes allotted to the webinar this morning, and we'll make a start right away, and hopefully get you guys off to your next meeting. So before I dive into the content for today, I just really wanted to promote a live event that actually starts this afternoon, European time, and it also runs in tomorrow. And we're calling the event the Modern SOC Summit, and so we're collecting together an array of Sumo employees, speakers, trainers. It's going to be part workshop, obviously part thought-provoking discussion. You're going to hear for some customers as well, and in terms of what they're doing in building out a modern SOC. But yeah, it's not too late to register. As I mentioned, it starts this afternoon, European time. So feel free to register and find out a little bit more about the modern SOC. And without further ado, we're going to dive straight in and talk a little bit about, well, first of all, really what the problem is. So first of all, we truly believe that security operations is ripe for change. These three areas that you see on the slide here are the main areas. So the first area, digital transformation or moving workloads to the cloud. So the fact is that the cloud migration spending is growing at 6 times the pace of general IT spending. And 3 out of 4 security teams would agree that their cloud infrastructures are generating many more security alerts than their similar on-premise environments. And the fact of the matter is that legacy security tools and SIEMs weren't built for digital transformation and the cloud. And the net result of all of this is that we are suffering, or security operations are suffering, more visibility gaps than ever before. And obviously, you can't secure something that you can't see. So that's the first main topic that we're addressing. The second is the shift in the threat landscape. So obviously, migrating our apps to the cloud have shifted the threat landscape, and in some ways, they've created an explosion of the attack surface as well. So in a survey that we run on an annual basis to look at the state of security operations, 60% of the people that we last surveyed said that there's been an increase in the number of security alerts because of the transition and the move to new infrastructure. Evolving threats, so obviously ransomware continues to plague everyone, but the vast majority, 55%, blame the increase in work essentially on the move to a cloud infrastructure. Clearly, a simple misconfiguration can cause a great data breach. We're collecting data from more devices than we have ever. So mobile devices, IoT devices. Obviously, many organizations are also adopting a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud strategy. So there's still the on-premise infrastructure to secure as well. And then on top of that, we're deploying applications using new technologies like containers, and it's just adding to the overall complexity. So that's the second problem we're looking to address. The third problem is the fact that, quite simply, security operations is no longer a human scale problem. So 83% of the security teams that we surveyed reported that their staff experienced alert fatigue. So I think it's been well documented what alert fatigue is. But 75% of those teams also determined in order to address that alert fatigue problem, they would need to hire 3 or more security analysts in order to stay on top of their daily workload. So clearly this is something that's not going to scale long term, and the main reason why we really truly believe that security operations is no longer a human scale problem. So the fact of the matter is none of the traditional approaches, so legacy SIEM, outsourcing, hiring more people, more experts, are going to work in the modern SOC. So organizations do need a modern cloud SIEM to secure the cloud journey and to obviously match the attack surface and bring innovation back into the SOC. And obviously you'll hear a lot more about that if you can join us at the Modern SOC Summit later today. Okay, so moving on. So why is Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM different from anything else? Well, first of all, we have this concept of automated insights. So these are a combination of our strength, which really originated in data and log collection. We have tremendous flexibility in the detections that we provide in that log data. And most importantly of all, we create these automated insights. So we automate alert triage and we create clusters of signals or alerts, and we term these insights. So with this automated alert triage, essentially we're completely automating the level 1 analyst function and helping you avoid the need to hire more level 1 analysts to deal with the load. We're also automatically enriching the insights and helping accelerate investigations by adding additional metadata to those insights and just improving the overall context that analysts have when they begin their investigations. The next reason you should be considering Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM is our cloud native scalability. So you send us whatever data whenever you like, whatever volume of data wherever you like. We scale elastically. We're a cloud native SaaS. So however much data you send us will scale, will allow you to query however much data you want, whenever you want. And the overall solution allows you to economically collect and analyze a vast array of data, not just security or even just log data, but we also have the capability through our observability platform to collect metrics and application tracing data as well. The next reason you should be looking at Cloud SIEM is we're a single platform. So we allow you to bring teams together and consolidate tools. So we obviously have a SIEM, which we're here talking about today, for all of the users of a single tool versus having different tools that are used across different teams. So maybe, your sysadmins are using a different tool to look at logs. Your application developers are looking at their application logs through a different tool. Perhaps consuming metrics through different tool sets. So we allow you to consolidate all of those tools into a single platform and bring all of those teams together. We provide the best of both worlds. So we're in essence built on top of a schemaless, powerful search interface that allows you to streamline and modernize your approach to security operations, the workflows. It allows you to perform ad hoc searches, threat hunting, as well as obviously correlate data using normalized versions of the log data. We support all clouds, so really our true finesse is within data collection and detection. So we are, as I mentioned earlier, a cloud native SaaS that resides within AWS, but our capability to collect data from Azure or Ali or any of the other commercial clouds, GCP out there, out of the box is really unprecedented. And then finally, we offer a tremendously rapid time to value. We're very easy to use. Typically, we get customers up and running through the out-of-the-box content and the cloud security platforms. So there's nothing to deploy, and we typically get customers up and running very, very rapidly. The first correlations are typically happening, within the first 24 hours or so of people deploying the platform and beginning to analyze the data. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to switch over to our demo, or I will do if I'm on the right screen. Here we go. So this is Cloud SIEM's what we call head-up display. So this is all about situational awareness. What you see in the middle is what we call the insight radar, and this is simply breaking down the 3 key metrics that you see in the top left-hand corner here. So this outer band here is essentially the ingest of what we call records. So records are the normalized version of the raw log data. No difference here. SIEMs have done this for ages. By normalizing the data that's being collected, it allows you to compare like for like, and that's the purpose of, as I said, what we call records. This inner band here, the histogram that you see, this is representing what we term signals. So signals are, in essence, the detections. Some other vendors might call them, correlated events. Some of them might call them alerts or notables. They're all the same thing. They're the output of typically a rules-based correlation engine, which is looking at those normalized records for threats, and where it finds threats, it's generating a signal, as we call them. And this is really no different so far than all of the commercial SIEM products that are on the market. Where we begin to offer differentiation is around what we call insights, which I talked to in the previous slide. And insights are represented on the insight radar here as these little triangles. Obviously, the color represents the status of the insights. But in essence, what we're doing with insights is we're clustering together related detections, so related signals, and automatically performing the tier 1 alert triage that typically obviously happens as part of that tier 1 function within a SOC today. The other data that you can see on the left-hand side here relates to SOC KPIs. So how can you measure the efficacy of your SOC function? Well, we keep these key metrics for all of the data that we process. And we're able, therefore, to provide things like mean time to detection, mean time to response and remediation. The other data that you see here is simply the status of each of these insights. So insights, as well as providing this automated tier 1 correlation function, alert triage in essence, as well as doing that, they help drive the workflow within a SOC as well. And we can see here we have 4 new insights which are represented on the insight radar by these each of these red triangles here. And we've got a couple of closed insights. And then also the little histogram at the bottom here provides a summary of opens and closes, status changes, essentially, of your insights over time. If we dive in to look at these 6 insights, what you'll see here is essentially a SOC manager's type view. It allows you to assign insights by moving them between the various tiers. The tiers, or the stages through which you workflow, are represented by these labels across the top here. And of course, these can be customized to whatever the stages that you have within your own custom workflow are. And then individuals would typically come in and obviously work from the new stage. And as a good analyst, what I'm going to do when I come in and begin working this insight, as we can see insight 2742 here, which relates to credential access with execution and initial access. So the actual naming of the insight is derived from the MITRE attack tactics from the underlying signals. Each of the underlying signals you can see in the main part of the screen here. In fact, if I just roll these up so you can see them in a little bit tighter view here. And we'll come back and talk to those in just a second. On the workflow aspect, as a good analyst, obviously, as I begin working on a new insight, then it's a good idea to let my colleagues know that I have started work on it. And you can go ahead and either assign insights to individuals, or you can organize, as you would do in a larger SOC, you could organize your teams in tiers and assign insights that way. So I'm going to go ahead and actually assign it to myself. As I work down here, I have some basic information about the underlying entity. Now, this is really important. So what we're doing with insights, as I mentioned, is we're clustering together the detections, the signals as we call them, and we cluster the signals around the entities. And as you can see here, this particular entity is a username, Napoleon Dynamite. We've historically supported IP addresses and DNS host names as entities, as well as obviously usernames. And one of the features that we've just added, and I'm going to cover in just a second, is enable our customers now to actually customize which fields in the data schema, the normalized record schema, they use for entity correlation. And this opens up a wealth of new use cases, clustering around malware or malware strain, clustering around malicious processes, or maybe malicious URLs. But as I said, I'll come back and show you a little bit more of that in just a second. The other information that you see here is obviously the severity of the overall insight, the number of unique signals. So one of the important things that you need to understand is happening under the hood here is Cloud SIEM is automatically deduplicating. So it's removing those chatty, repetitive signals that, that security devices often generate. We're also keeping, obviously, statistics on when the first and the last signals were detected that make up the insight, so that we can provide statistics around, as I mentioned earlier, mean time to detection, remediation, and as you can see here, dwell time. So this particular insight here is a dwell time of 4 hours. And then finally, down at the bottom here, you see this insight has been tagged by a variety of MITRE ATT&CK tactics and also techniques as well. So obviously, if you're not familiar with MITRE ATT&CK, it really has become the de facto industry standard for understanding attacks, motivations, tools, techniques, and processes. And in addition to automatically tagging insights with these, it's possible to tag insights with your own taxonomy as well as to leave comments. Obviously, as you're working through a particular insight, it's again good just to keep your colleagues, particularly if you're working in shift, up to date with what's happening on the insight. And as analysts add comments, obviously they will appear at the bottom here, and as well as this audit trail, which allows you to see the overall history of the insights. Okay, so on to the main part of the insight. So what you see across the top here is what we call the insight timeline. So one of the critical things to understand about insights, as well as performing that automatic tier 1 alert triage and driving the overall workflow of the SOC. The other thing that they're doing is they're performing a very valuable detection capability. And what they're doing is they're performing detections over long periods, or correlations over long periods of time. So if you look at most of the, or all of the legacy SIEMs that are available in the market, one of the big challenges they have by using rules-based approach to correlation is it's actually very, very difficult to correlate two events over time that are spaced apart by a long period of time. Because of that, the bad guys, threat actors know this. They try and stay low and slow and defeat these correlation-based detections. They realize that if they come in and maybe do 1 or 2 low priority actions and then go away for a week or 2 and come back and progress their campaign after that, that they're very, very unlikely to fall foul of a correlation rule. And this is a huge weakness. Clearly, as I said, threat actors know this and they are exploiting that weakness. And so this is, again, another great benefit that insights bring to the modern SOC. because what we're able to do by default is to correlate data over a 2-week period of time. You can change the period. Some customers will maybe do a so-called look back correlation over a longer period of time, maybe 30 days. But by default, this 14-day period allows the system to automatically, so without any tier 1 alert triage, join together to cluster related events around this entity, in this case a username. And as we can see here, as we mouse over each of the individual detections, the signals in the insight timeline, this particular insight here happened when Napoleon went and clicked on a potentially malicious URL. So this is a data source from Office 365. We've then had a threat intel match on that URL. So we now have some confirmation from a threat intel source that particular URL. And here we go. This is a reasonable example of what I was just talking about with this time-based correlation. Here we can see the threat actor then disappears, or it doesn't progress their attack for actually, in this case, only a small number of hours, long enough to defeat most legacy correlation engines, I would add. But here we see at the end here, them coming back and in this particular case, they've stolen some credentials. So Office 365 is warning about essentially a user logging in from 2 places that it's just impossible to travel between. And then as further confirmation, we have some of our anomaly rules triggering and warning us about a user logging in from 2 different countries in 1 hour. And that was repeated. So as you can see here, this is the insight timeline is a really powerful way of allowing your analysts to dive straight into incident response or into threat hunting, right? You've got a pre-baked incident to go and work on there. There's no tier 1 alert triage or any of the delay or the alert fatigue that goes along with it. So within that modern SOC, this is one of the features that we believe is valuable to organizations, is that capability to move straight into incident response and threat hunting on that basis. Okay, so what I wanted to do, as I mentioned earlier, was just touch upon this new capability that we've added. So as I mentioned, insights are generated around or by clustering detections or signals, as we call them, around entities. In this particular example here, the entity was based on user. We've also been able to do something similar on IP addresses and host names. So this is our entity screen. This is a great way. I don't know, say something's brought to the attention of the SOC, something suspicious. This is a great way to come in and just do a first check on it. Maybe someone's worried about a particular system or a user in your environment, and you can come in and search for that system. And find out about its activity score. So in this particular example here, clearly from the host name, we can tell here that it's one of our compute instances. We've also tagged the entity, as you can see here, with something meaningful that tells us about the application, and also in this instance, the cloud that it resides in, AWS. And further information, and all of those tags can be used through the search function to locate data or report data on the data or the entity on a later basis. And then in the main part of the screen, we can see that the current activity score, and as we scroll down, all of the previous incidents, insights, as well as the associated detections, the so-called signals, that are related to that particular insight, as well as the timeline, the same insight timeline that you see across here, across the top, that allows you as an analyst to get that historical timeline of detection. So that's all, as I mentioned, this is all a feature that's been available in the product for a long while, a great way of starting your investigation from the entity's perspective. And as you can see here, each entity has an entity score, which allows you obviously to go and keep an eye on the riskiest entities first. So the point anyway was that I wanted to showcase this new feature where we've just allowed Cloud SIEM customers now to express pretty much any type of data as an entity. And what this means is you're able to create clusterings around that entity type. And the example I have for you today here, these are the default entity types that we've always had in the platform. So host name, IP address, username, MAC address. And what we've done here for the purposes of the demo this morning is add this threat name. And quite simply, all this is doing is it's using a part of the schema that we would use to describe, in this example here, a malware type or strain. As you can see here in this particular example, we have an outbreak of Trojan downloader Locky. So actually quite an insidious virus, something certainly that you would want to jump on if that was you were seeing detections in your environment. And what we've done by using this as the entity is it now allows you to understand with one simple click every single detection in the environment of that particular strain of malware. And we can see, again, you have all of those same features that are always available with entities. You can see the timeline of the outbreak here across the top. And obviously we can mouse over. You have all of the detail of each and every outbreak of this particular strain of virus and the insights that were triggered. And really from this really helps from two perspectives. First of all, it helps just simply in the clear up, right? What's the impact? Where do I need to go and visit to go and remediate an outbreak like this? But it really also helps answer the management's question, really, which is how widespread is this? How threatening is it? Obviously, the broader the outbreak, the riskier it becomes to the organization's overall security. And so think of this, applying this same technology, as I mentioned earlier, to maybe a malicious process name by combining your threat intel detections or your threat intel feeds, which are telling you about hashes of malicious processes, or perhaps indicating poor reputation of URLs. So imagine combining that and allowing you to pivot around the detection data based on bad processes or malicious URLs, or as you can see in the example here, the strain of malware. So we believe this is going to be tremendous. A tremendous new feature to help streamline not really the detection, obviously really more focused around the remediation when organizations do have these types of outbreaks. And these are the early days, right? The use cases are still coming thick and fast, and obviously as we discover or find value in new use cases amongst our customer base, we'll be sharing them with everyone. Good. So yes, well, I hope obviously you found that useful. Let me return to the presentation. There we go. And yeah, just really just a couple more slides, really, just to wrap things up. And then don't forget, if you've got any questions, you can click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and I'll get to answering them shortly. So everything anyway I've shown you so far is how our modern cloud SIEM solution can help you improve your SOC workflows and eliminate the noise from tier 1 alert triage and the thousands of these seemingly irrelevant alerts which are coming from your security devices and controls. But it's not clearly just about the technology and all of the knobs and switches. It's about you guys, the security experts who are here and ready to support your organizations with your expertise. And we're able to help augment your expertise, obviously with professional services. We also have premium support, which gives you a named dedicated technical account manager. But over and above that, we also have the capability through what we call Sumo Logic's Special Operations or Spec Ops offering. And these are a team of hand-picked elite cyber analysts. They come from some of the top organizations worldwide, both from a commercial and an intelligence and a defense background. And these guys are available on demand as an extension of your teams to help when you need. Typically to support as well as mentor your teams with the latest deep knowledge of the threat landscape. So just wanted obviously to make sure you guys understood that there was some people to help support you guys as well. Okay, well, we're sort of shortly coming up against time, and I think we've got a minute or two left just for some questions. So let me just see what questions are being asked here. So, okay, here's a great question. What kind of data can I bring into Sumo Logic SIEM? So Sumo Logic SIEM allows you to correlate any type of records data. We're built on top of a platform that has a native capability to collect not only log data, but also metric and tracing data as well. And you know, we very much see the future of a modern SOC is pulling together all of these data sources. So not just about log data, but also about metrics and ultimately application tracing as well. So thank you. That was a great question. And so I think we've got time for one more question. So how long does it usually take to deploy Sumo Logic? So typically, as I mentioned, we have a very, very rapid time to value. Typically, we spend the first 24, 48 hours helping customers onboard their data, so collect the data from cloud data sources or on-premise environments or wherever it resides. Very flexible, easy to use collection mechanism. And so typically, yeah, it takes you 24 to 48 hours. Once the data is onboarded, you can very easily select which sources are being correlated within the SIEM, and the SIEM will go ahead and start generating the detections, the signals immediately, and then the insights come as they cluster over time. So I think that was pretty much all we had time for today. Just again, just a very quick shout out. If you guys have found value in the session today, it's still not too late to register for our Modern SOC Summit event, which starts later this afternoon and runs through tomorrow. Collection of workshops, obviously subject matter expertise, customers, Sumo Logic employees telling you how they're benefiting from using Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM in their modern SOC. So thank you very much for listening, and I think that's a wrap. We'll get you off to your next meeting. Thank you.